Hey everyone, I wanted to get on here and talk about a story that I wrote and share that story as well. This is one of those ones that I wrote a few years back. Not quite sure of where I was when I wrote it, but both physically and, mentally, emotionally, all that good stuff. But it is one of those ones that it makes you think. It's one of those that it's like, when you say, hey, I'm never coming back to this place, I'm never coming back to this person, I'm never coming back to this thing, but somehow or other you end up back in that space, whether it's with a person, a place, or a thing. And that story is kind of like story of all of our lives, right? No, not always. But in this particular instance, this is how the story goes. And it's one of those that just kind of stuck with me. So I was looking through my archives and I was like, well, you know what? This is one of those stories that I'm going to share. So this story is called The Laundromat. And I'm going to go ahead and read it to you now. I nervously pushed my cart, heavy with the weight of 2 weeks' worth of unwashed clothes, to the very back of the laundromat. So much had changed here. The machines had all been upgraded, and the Pac-Man game that once stood in the corner next to the drink and snacks machines was peeling. The screen was now pitch black. Who knows how long it had been since it worked or had been played. Not that I had any quarters to spare. All right, I said softly and breathlessly to myself as I bent down and checked to make sure that the industrial washer was empty. After I saw that it and the one beside it were both free of clothing, I opened the door and lifted my eyebrow in surprise. Gone was the familiar mildewy smell that I had become accustomed to as a child. I'd gotten used to sniffing all of the machines before my mama or my abuela would begin to load their clothes. But that had been years ago, and so much had changed. I looked back towards the front, my eyes taking in each patron of the laundromat. There were not many of us in there. No homeless guy pretending to wash clothes just so that he could nap in a semi-safe space. No kids running around and checking the machines for loose quarters so that they could buy snacks and play Pac-Man. No, the place had changed, and I almost teared up because my being back here was a reflection of just how much things had changed. I wasn't supposed to ever have to come back here again. After my cousin had been robbed and killed right here in this very laundromat, I had vowed to never visit this place again. How could I feel safe here? How could anybody? Didn't all of these people know that in this place that was once a space of snacks and game playing, cart riding and the smell of fresh, clean clothes, it had become the scene of one of my worst nightmares, tainted with bright red blood and the smell of death, tears and the broken hearts of a family that would never be whole again? I shut my eyes tightly, trying to push away the image of Giovanni laying on the floor in a pool of her own blood, eyes vacant and lifeless. I could feel my bottom lip quivering, and there were chill bumps up and down the length of my arms. And then I heard the hum of one of the dryers starting, and I felt a warmth coming from my heart and slowly but surely radiating out to the rest of me. No, V, they're just here to clean their clothes too, I said to myself. I opened my eyes, took a deep breath, and began loading my clothes into the wash. And that's the laundromat. It really makes me think about all of those spaces that we vowed to never go to, that we vowed never to go back to, rather, for whatever reason. And somehow we find ourselves back in those spaces. That's life, though. I mean, it makes you wonder whether it's involuntary or not. How can you avoid going back to those places, or if you really should ever really try to avoid it, or if it's one of those things that you just have to like confront, if you have to give in to the inevitability, if it is inevitable, that you're going to end up back in that space. As for V, obviously there were unanswered questions there at the end of the story. Why was she back there? Obviously, I would assume that it had something to do with the 2 weeks worth of unwashed clothes, or the fact that she didn't have quarters to spare. I think back to my own childhood, the memories of the laundromat. Obviously, it was a space that we didn't want to be in. But anytime that we had to go to the laundromat, we were there for a reason. We had to wash clothes. Either our washing machine was broken or our dryer was broken, or we did not have a washer or a dryer. And so, we were there out of necessity, but it was a space of community still. And it's like, obviously, for V, this was a space that had good memories at one point. And then it became a space that held trauma. And I think that all of us have spaces in our lives that hold positive memories and then are tainted. And we have to begin to understand the duality of those spaces. And I wonder, genuinely, how do we reconcile with that? How do we reconcile with the duality of spaces like that? So yeah, I'd love to know everybody's thoughts on the story, on the duality of spaces like that, and just in general, how do we deal with that? But yeah, thank you for listening to this story. I can't wait to share more stories with you all.